Very good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Right, okay, so we're starting our conversation about digital literacy. And for most people, digital literacy, like first things comes to mind is application, right? It's like we're teachers, we need to teach students how to use. But then again, there are always questions that students might ask us. Why this and why that? And without the basic knowledge, the fundamentals, it will be very difficult to answer these questions. Which is why I have this a little primer for you on large language model and generative artificial intelligence. Hopefully that will somewhat give you a rough idea of what LLM and GenAI is actually like and how they are formed. So going back to the origins of... Okay, all right, just one point. Okay, so starting off with first concept, tokenization. Am I blocking? Yeah, it's all right, so maybe over here. All right, so tokenization, it's basically trying to break a chunk of text into distinctive sections or segments, right? So normally we would consider tokens as number of words. Now I'm just saying this is not true. It is not like one word per token, but for simplicity's sake, well, let's just assume this is the way to go, right? So we have 13 tokens right here, and together with the brackets as well. So those will be counted as tokens. And then, so that was one approach to do it. Then another approach to tokenization is actually breaking into different parts of a certain words into more tokens. So as you can see here from this example, we could actually have 20 different tokens, depending on the method of tokenizations. Again, what method has been used, it depends on the company. The company has to say, so let's assume that this is the way we will continue from here. Right, after tokenization, it will be data labeling. Data labeling, I think some of us have heard about how AI companies have used human workforce to help them label the data. And we've got an executive director here from Charles Sturt University who said, like basically they use millions of people to do data labeling, and so that we can now benefit from their work. Obviously, they are very, they're paid the cheap labor, so there's that. But after that, basically when we have got enough data labels, like for example, this hypothetical approach of labeling, then we can proceed with the training. But again, this is not real. All right, this is not actually what companies will do. But for us EAP teachers, this is probably the way that we would like to see, right? So adjectives and abstract arts, culture, or even symbols. Okay, this is one way to actually understand it. Right, and then with all these data labeled, then coming from all these data collected from a part of the internet, though, we've got the pre-training that can actually begin. So within the pre-training, there's something called the artificial neural network. It's a concept that basically tries to mimic our brain, right? How our brain works. So our brain has a lot of neurons, and then all the neurons are connected. So we take a chunk of that internet, right? Say now we want to train just a primer on language, large language. Okay, so it's these 5 words we want to enter into input into the neural network. So we run the network, and what happens is most likely the next word that follows language could be language arts, language speaker, language company, language model. The percentage of model could be very low at the beginning, right? And so that's why we try to, because we want to increase the percentage of the word model. So we then go back to modify the connections, or actually companies go back to modify the connections, so that this percentage will now increase, right? So after one pass, maybe increase by a little bit. But after that, we do modification n times. We run the network n times with all the text that we collected from the internet, so that now maybe the percentage of the next word that follows a primer on large language will be model, the highest percentage. And this is very important because then it tells us that basically what large language model is about, it's a machine ability, a software that can predict the next word by the percentage. Okay, and we're simplifying all of that. So with all of that training done now on text, right, we've got a pre-trained large language model, which is good at predicting the next word. Okay, so this is where our LMM comes from. But we don't use LMM, so to speak. Right? There are many, like large multimodal model, large reasoning models. So we are seeing more of these. Actually, we don't use them, but they are just trained. So when we actually get to use them, there is something called an assistant chatbot that actually adds on to it. So the assistant chatbot will access the information in the language model so that we can communicate with them. So with the assistant chatbot added to it, now we get the GenAI. So it is really the GenAI that we actually operate with, not the large language model. All right, so we have these pre-trained GenAI, multimodal language and reasoning. So if you're not too familiar with the development, we have got a list here which maybe gives you some idea of what they are like. So we have Sora, which is purely multimodal, and then we have the ChatGPT from 1 to 4.5. This is now, it used to be language only, but eventually we get to the 4.0, right? ChatGPT 4.0, which can do both multimodal and language. So on and so forth, right? So basically they have a blend, a hybrid of some of these models in one now, right? Okay, and then, right, so after that, that's it. Basically, that's the whole thing about how large language model will develop into GenAI, right? Then I've collected a number of questions that I often get asked by my students and of course our colleagues. Like to do this lightning Q&A with you. So let's see how well you know about these questions. Okay, so question 1, which is better, POE or ChatGPT? Like lightning, very quick. Okay, the answer is POE is not even a GenAI program, so it is just an interface. You cannot compare an interface with ChatGPT. So think POE as Mr. Fox from Peppa Pig. So he sells everything, but he doesn't produce them. So this is Mr. Fox, okay? And this is, holding right here, popular GenAI models. In the truck, less popular GenAI models, and this is me and other users who survive on free credits. Okay, so we cannot actually talk about comparing that. All right, GenAI cannot access the internet, right? Cannot. Used to be, but now they can. It's now not being able to access the internet is a thing in the past. Many newer GenAI programs have now access to the internet. Next question. All right, can GenAI search authentic resources, references, produce them accurate citations and reference lists now? Can you do it? That's right. Okay, yes, automatic search and authentic references is like a very easy thing for them to do now. So, here we go. Question 4. GenAI programs cannot do fact check, can they? Right, a year ago, we say cannot. Now, well, yes, they surely can now because the GenAI reasoning model, right, is exactly developed to handle the problem of hallucination. So, and they will only get better, right? It's just keep improving. Right, next question. Can I train my own GenAI program with my own data and then putting it online? Can I do it? Right? Well, Lisa will tell us yes. Because yes, we will cost you a lot of money though. So expect about more than $5,000 per month at least in the time of training alone and also maintaining the service. So big companies like Bloomberg, they can afford their own model like that. Okay, but then I heard that somebody said they can train their own GenAI model and their own cost at nearly zero cost, right? Is this possible? Right, so for personal private use, actually you can do something similar. You can have a high-end computer with powerful GPU and good programming knowledge, or you pay that bit of money and then a monthly or pay as you go and have a little bit of programming knowledge and you can actually achieve that. But that is like you're not putting it online. That's the biggest difference. So the quality of that result also depends on many factors like your training data, and the size of the LMM that also come into play. Right, so let's say now, okay, let's say I'm going to pay money. I'm subscribed to GenAI service, OpenAI, and train my GenAI now, right? So do I get to keep my own computer, keep it on my own computer? So the model I train, can it be my own? Right, I want it, right? So offline, local. So the answer is no, you cannot. So you can only get it as long as you're still paying for the money, right? You never get to actually keep the model. So the analogy is, you think about adopting a bear from WWF. Right? So you get an artificial copy that you can play with. It's very fun, but the real bear is always out there in the wild. So you don't really get it. It's not yours if you stop paying money. So, right. So when I upload something to GenAI program and make a query, am I immediately making GenAI smarter? Yeah, immediately making GenAI smarter. Okay. The answer is no, right? Users cannot make GenAI immediately smarter because the training happens only on the GenAI company's schedule. So if they say train, then they train. So it doesn't immediately get trained. But the quality of input does improve with the GenAI performance eventually. So on behalf of the GenAI companies, thank you very much for your selfless sharing, all the things you uploaded, all the beautiful prompts, your lovely documents. Thank you. All right, they all get a copy of that. Right, and this is last question. So if I am not immediately making GenAI smarter, smarter, how come GenAI gives me different output with the same prompt or inputs? Why is that? It gives me different things. Well, if you've been paying attention to the training part and the percentages part, well, you together with all the users around the world are skewing the percentages associated with the next text prediction, but only by a super duper extremely minuscule bit. However, because of that tiny difference in probability, the results can vary very greatly. So it's not just you making that tiny little change, but everybody else around the world is doing that. But yeah, just very, very minor. All right, so that's the end of my part, my 10 minutes. I hope I kept the time. All right, here we go. So that's all from me. Thank you for listening, and happy to answer any questions you might have after these PD sessions. Now, let's enjoy the rest of the workshop. Thank you.